The noes, 1, 3, 4. Honorable members, clearly the ayes have it. The motion is accordingly adopted.
All right, so last Friday, after 4 days of debates, Parliament passed the 2021 budgets by majority decision. Was 137 votes as against 134. We want to have a conversation on the back of this. There are other national issues that I'll talk to my guest about, but let me just introduce them to you. Alhassan Suhuyini is Member of Parliament for Tamale North, member of the Appointments Committee and Deputy Ranking Lands and Forestry. Good morning to you. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Mamavi, and good morning to your viewers. Thank you for inviting me.
Great. Dr. Stephen Amoah is also Member of Parliament for Nhyiaeso and a member of the Finance Committee of Parliament. Dr. Amoah, very good morning to you. Okay, we don't quite have him yet, but we will certainly raise him. So let me start with Alhassan Suhuyini. We saw the minority make some quite very strong points in the end. From the head counts, you could only come up with 134. So let me ask, what happened to your members? Because it sounds like it came down to numbers.
Yes, it did. First of all, I think that we need to understand what happened on Friday. It is not the approval of appropriation that is required by government to carry out expenditure for 2021. This was just a decision on the budget policy. What will happen in the coming days will be that committees will now begin to examine the estimates that have been allocated to the various ministries, departments, and agencies. And at the committee level, approve of these estimates or not, and make recommendations to the floor for their adoption or not. It is a collection of all these recommendations from the various committees that will eventually lead to the approval of the appropriation for 2021 or not. So we're still a bit, of a distance from the overall approval of government's financial statement for 2021. Now, you asked a question about what happened to our members. Indeed, we have always hoped as a minority group that the advantage or the opportunity we have as members of the 8th Parliament, where the numbers are equal, should not be reduced to just mere partisanship. We think we have the opportunity to collaborate and, in some cases where necessary, vote to reflect non-partisanship in support or against, positions. So, yes, we knew some of our members were not present, but that did not deter us from advancing our arguments and points, hoping that some of the people on the majority group will join us to, take the position that we canvass to take. So what happened was that at the end of the day, 3 of our members were absent. One had a family issue, was actually laying the sister to rest. That's very Friday, and was at the burial ground when the voting was taking place. Another was in his constituency preparing for the funeral of his mother that was supposed to take place on Saturday, and so could not be available in the House on Friday to vote. And unfortunately, we have one of our members who has also been ill for some time now, bedridden, and could not be brought to the chamber to participate. So at the end of the day, we had 134 members present and voting, and these three unfortunately could not join us. But I was quite disappointed that we did not get some of the members on the majority group either staying out or sitting down not to be counted, because we thought our issues that we raised were quite germane.
During the debates, we didn't see any of them agree with your side. So why were you expecting, or why were you disappointed that they all voted in favor of the motion?
Well, member gets to debate, not a debate. So you cannot assume that, the fact that those who got the opportunity to debate did not agree with us meant that the whole group did not agree with the issues that we raised.
We'll try and raise Dr. Stephen Amoah, MP for Insharaso, in a bit to join in this conversation. But Alas Asin, you say all is not lost. You still have the opportunity to object to some of the content of the 2021 budget. Explain further. The House has adopted the 2021 budget, correct?
No, I did not say all is not lost. I was just explaining the procedure, and my explanation did not suggest or did not intend to suggest in any way that there is going to be some objections or rejections in the coming days. All I thought to do was to take us to the was just the approval.
Oh, please go ahead.
Friday is that we'll have committees now examining the estimates that includes the allocations that have been made to the various ministries, departments, and agencies. Now, these committees will either approve of these estimates or not. And their approvals or otherwise will be brought to the floor. And it is at that stage that when they are collectively approved, you would have approved the appropriation that will allow government to carry out expenditure in 2021. So yes, there may be disapprovals in the coming days or not, but I am simply saying that I have seen news reports that seem to suggest that the budget for 2021 has been approved. I'm saying we are still about 2 steps away from the final approval of the budget for 2021.
Okay, so I guess, but if it comes down to numbers, maybe too early for us to determine if you would still, because in the end, everything will come down to numbers, I know, going forward, because of the 137 that we have.
Yes. I mean, hopefully not. I mean, I hope we will not have to disagree to the point that we will have to vote on some of the issues that will be coming up. I do know that as a group, we have some reservations with some of the taxes that government, for example, wants to introduce. And so we will make our, views known on those taxes, talk about the COVID levy, talk about the increment in the NHIL and VAT, and also the sanitation and pollution levy that has been nicknamed the Bola tax. These are, taxes that we have issues with. We also may raise issues, or not may, we also have issues with the banking sector, the 5% that is supposed to be charged on the banking, that the financial institutions are supposed to pay, from their gross profits at the end of the year. We have some issues with all of these things. So these will come up strongly. But I'm hoping that these disagreements will be resolved in a way that we will not have to come to the point of voting on these issues. Because at the committee level, a lot of give and take happens. For example, we are of the view that many people have already paid for COVID. The cost of COVID is still being borne by a lot of Ghanaians. I mean, businesses have suffered, people have lost jobs. In fact, they have lost loved ones. That's enough cost. And so it is insensitive for a government to impose extra burden or extra cost on people who have had to endure all these pains of either losing a business or losing a job or losing a loved one as a result of COVID. It's paid for. So please, we think it's not the best time to be asking people to pay for COVID. And we don't think that there's even any reasonable expenditure that people must bear. If there's any at all, it's because government perhaps was not thoughtful in the expenditure that they engage in as a result of COVID, also related to elections. We think some of the expenditure was reckless and they were wasteful, and that is why perhaps we are being called upon to support at this stage. So we do not think that it is a necessary tax at all, and we'll make our views known and demonstrate, maybe using government's own numbers, why we think this is not very useful. If you look at other economies around the world, their governments are actually trying to stimulate the economy by giving out incentives to businesses and the general public. In fact, you have dole-outs that are being sent out there. So clearly, I think that it is not a tax that we will support. We also have issues with the sanitation and pollution tax. I still have been raising questions about what has happened to the 10% environmental excise tax that we started charging plastic producers since 2014. I understand it has raised over 900 million Ghana cedis, which has not been spent yet, just because we cannot seem to agree on which ministry is responsible for the disbursement of the accrued funds. So clearly, I am not convinced at this stage that we need some extra funds to deal with sanitation. Okay. Our local government authorities are well placed to deal with sanitation issues if the centralization of their expenditure is reduced to the barest minimum. Okay. And so at the committee level, and I'm sure on the floor to approve the appropriation or not, we will raise some of these germane issues and hope that we can find a workable solution together, because we will not also want to make it impossible for government to spend in 2021. Even as we raise these critical issues, it is for our collective good as a country for government's hands not to be tied, because by the end of this month, if we do not approve appropriation, it will be illegal for government to, carry out any expenditure. Okay. And I think that we have followed these things happen in the United States of America a couple of times, where they just have up to midnight to approve appropriation for the executive to be able to spend. We do not hope to come to that point in our country.
On the other side, Dr. Stephen Amoah, MP for Nhyira. So we've been unsuccessful with the Zoom, so he joins us via phone. Good morning to you, Dr. Stephen Amoah. I don't know how much of the submissions by Al-Hassan Suhuyini that you've listened into, but I want to ask on the issues that he raised concerning their disagreements with some of the levies, the COVID-19 levy, the 1%, also the financial sector cleanup levy of 5% on profits before tax of banks, and the sanitation and pollution levy. At this point where the budgets as a whole has been approved, as we saw on Friday, going forward, what is available, what can be done with the introduction of these taxes?
Okay, thank you very much. My regards to our cherished listeners this very morning. I'm very sorry that my end here, I could not join via the Zoom, but forgive me. I didn't hear most of the things my minority brother said, but I just heard the latter part of it. If you look at the picture, it's all about prejudicial position of our brothers on the other side, just politically to do something to impede productivity, so that probably it will affect the performance of this government.
Oh, but what you've just said is the opposite. What he said to us, his submission was quite the opposite of the statement that you've just made. What
I'm saying is that they are impeding progress because almost everything that we want to push in the House, they come against it. They don't want to accept it. They don't want government business to go on. But we should agree that in our country today, if it goes on well or if it goes on bad, we all live in Ghana. And one thing I'm surprised at is, in spite of all the destructive interference of waves going around just because of the sheer fact that the numbers are almost the same, our brothers have not been able to offer any alternative in terms of fiscal policy. We are not in normal times. If you go through the PFM Act 2016, Act 921, Section 18, it states clearly without any ambiguity or debate that in times such as this where we have public health epidemic or pandemic like as we are having and other conditions, we are supposed to even suspend our own fiscal rules and policies. So even when it comes to taxation policies and other things, with respect to our fiscal rules, our spending, because the fiscal rules is about spending and tax policies, we don't go even the normal way. It is a fact. And it is a legal requirement and it's in there. So I'm even surprised that they just even want us, in any case, if they want to do that, then we do politics. Because there is no better alternative in terms of our fiscal management, what we are having in a short term. No. Even we ourselves, we are not contractional fiscal policies adopted because we are capitalists. Everybody knows. Under His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, he either reduced or scrapped entirely 15 different tax components. Under His Excellency former President Mahama, he introduced 10 tax components. They are all there. I stated this on the floor. Nobody could challenge, and it's a fact. Maybe time may not allow us. So what we are saying is that every government or any president who leads a government respectfully, humbly, does not use his good pocket money, but he uses good policies to fund projects. And now we have inevitable projects that in a short time we have obligations to perform. Already we are talking against our debt levels, moving beyond 70% of our GDP. But even then, we have a lot of debate to do, just that not now, at the right time we speak to it. But what I'm trying to say is that if we are shifting from even borrowing more, now, I'm not saying we'll never borrow. I mean, U.S., every place they borrow. And we want to fund our short-term needs, the inevitable needs, the obligation we have to perform. What are we going to? Because the revenue arm of every budget in any country comprises revenue through the tax, debt, that is borrowing, maybe royalties and grants. And you know, even now, because we are at the lower level middle income status, the type of grants we get is different from what we used to get when they left us that deplorable economic state. So what we are saying now is that even when you're talking about stimulus, the government has given about 100 billion under the CARE. The CARE, I think, is the Covered Alleviation and Revitalization of Enterprises Support, to support businesses, I mean, small ones. And there was another one that government raised about 100,000. Talking about the banking sector, because of prudent management of President Akufo-Addo's government, you realize that even in terms of capitalization, which is very key performance indicator within the industry, they made over 140-point-something% increase in terms of capitalization from what we took over in 2017. Government already also gave up something because of the COVID to support the banking industry. The government has spent over 21 billion just because that haven't done. So even within the banking sector, they are even doing better now. And the banking industry players attest to this fact.
So you're saying that, you know, when it comes to the conversation on appropriation, we will not see you object to any of the levies that have come up. Nothing will change?
My sister, I'm telling you, the levies are even done in moderation. We are all finance people. My brother is very knowledgeable. He's on the committee. I'm on the committee. I am asking Ghanaians. The only thing I've heard from some experts is about this issue of expansionary fiscal policies alternative. Trust me, in a short term, it's not going to work. Anybody, because the ramifications of expansionary fiscal policy will be around 2 years' time. And there is a dying, immediate, short-term need that we need to fund. Do we want this country to collapse? No. We are taking prudent measures in the short term. Then we can ensure practicalization of our consolidation, our completion, our continuity, and lift and put this country back on track and move on, attain growth and stability. You can't run a country just because of politics. The only best option left in a short term is that we shouldn't do. So how do we fund it? Our brothers should be able to come out with alternatives. They cannot cut down some expenditures, and they cannot. Have they even been identified?
If they came up, you know, you're sounding like if they came up with alternative, you would consider it and adopt it.
No. If the alternative is viable and prudent, why not, my sister? Because we want Ghana to move on. Let me tell you something. Even when people are talking about the fact that we need to widen the tax net, it's a fact. This thing has been. They have been saying this. All of us have been saying this for over 40 years now. We still have the problem. Let me ask you, ask anybody that talks about, not only my brothers from NDC or even the MPP or the experts. As a country, can we even tell the taxable areas we have not taxed as I'm talking to you now?
Why do we have...
These are the programs and the projects that we have that we know that will be enough. No.
Yeah, but so Dr. Stephen Omo, haven't the leaders failed then? Because if we still can't figure some of these things out after 40 years, as you say it, is it us, the ordinary persons who don't have the mandate, who should be given the solutions?
But let me tell you, most of these problems that we are talking about, you cannot blame His Excellency, former President Mahama alone. You cannot blame His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, the sitting president. It's been old age problem, maybe for about 40, 50 years as a country, even trying to industrialize our country to get to the rich country level, develop economies. We have not, because look at their tax. Their taxes are basically based on income, properties, and social contributions. But look at the poor countries. Taxes are basically based on international trade and even volatile assets and stuff like that. So we have a very challenging situation, not now and not probably yesterday, for so many years. But in the attempt to move us from this level, that is why the president is so much interested in industrializing this country, is so much interested in finishing this issue with our database and address system code. These are all fundamentals we need to build a very solid economy and also ensure that we can widen our tax base. If you don't even have the addresses, if you don't even have the appropriate data, how do you do it? But in the attempt to achieve these strategic goals, we need to do something tactically. And now we need to resuscitate this economy, this country. We need to stay focused. We need to do the completion thing I want to do. We need to consolidate. And the best option to fund these things and attain fiscal levels and manage our debt levels in a way that we can sustain and not to destroy this country is the option that His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo.
Okay, let me bring in Alhassan Sini.
The NDC government, the NDC brothers, as of now to me, they are just doing politics because they don't have any viable or prudent alternative. That is a fact. They are just trying to get political capital. I mean, just drive the sentiments of Ghanaians and do this politics. But they themselves know, because I don't think they don't know the truth. They know that the best option for this government. In any case, under Nana Addo Dankwa's leadership, 1 minute, please. Under his leadership, there has been net gains in terms of tax policies. The NDC introduced 17%.
Yeah, I think that you've made that statement. So we appreciate that you've made that statement already. Let's move on. Let me bring in Alhassan Sini at this point. And I get the sense, and I guess maybe my viewers too, that it's still going to be NDC says this, NPP says this, it comes down to a vote, even in the conversation of appropriation that you talk about, Alhassan Sini.
Isn't that just unfortunate? I mean, our colleagues in government, when it suits them, will talk about the need to build bridges. We'll talk about the need for us to work together, to collaborate. Yet, at every turn, the tone is not, suggestive of, a group that is willing to collaborate. I mean, you listened to me earlier. I told you about how our intentions are not to, put impediments in the way of government. There's a need for us to collaborate and discuss the issues. But our friends simply dismiss the issues. They think they are non-issues. They are not critical for us to even raise, and raising them is suggestive of a group that is just interested in frustrating them. And so with that mindset, they are not even willing to engage. They just want to shut you up and fight you. And I mean, with all due respect, that is not the way to govern a country, especially a country that has come out of an election that has given an indication that the two parties are almost equal. It is regrettable that some of them have that attitude towards what is at stake. We must always keep an open mind and give our opponents the benefits of the doubt, and not assume that every time they are up to mischief and they are up to no good and they simply just want to frustrate. We've all been given the equal responsibility of moving this country forward to the next level. We may have disagreements about how to do that, but through, an open-minded approach to issues, we should be able to collaborate to still move this country to the next level. And I'm looking forward to that kind of interaction, and not one that simply says that you guys are up to no good, you don't mean well, and we will fight you and deal with you. That's not the way to go. And I get that tone listening to my brother, and I'm sure that anybody who has followed this conversation will see, that the points I raised about the need for us all to keep an open mind is germane to what may influence what will happen in Parliament in the coming days. Clearly, I am not interested in the blame game, and I like how some of them have also moved. I mean, you heard him talk about how it will even be very difficult to blame President Rawlings, President John Mahama for some of the structural problems that our economy is faced with. How he talks about the fact that all the free water and all the freebies that people enjoyed did not come from Nana Ado's pocket. It did not come from the president's hometown. And this was not the language, especially before the elections, and especially when President Mahama was in office. I mean, he was blamed for practically everything. And, his cluelessness and incompetence was the reason why we went through every problem in this country. Even the headaches that we had and the sunny days that we had was as a result of his incompetence. It is important, and it is quite refreshing to begin to hear the truth being confessed by people who at the time would not even listen to such suggestions of structural challenges with our economy and the difficulty that the government at the time had with dealing with some of the problems that we all knew and felt strongly about. We do not think it is time for us to pay them back in their own coin. We will continue to keep an open mind and raise the issues as critically as possible as we can. But it does not mean that we want to frustrate them. We just think that there are better ways of doing some of the things that they want to do. We are not, for example, against all the, other laudable things that are in the budget. We have simply raised concerns with a few. And so how difficult is that for them to approach those issues that we have with an open mind, so we can all see how we can fine-tune them to the benefit of all. I think that they must change their approach, they must change their attitude if we really have to collaborate to move this country forward.
Let me get a response.
But unfortunately, Mama B, I have to leave you at this point because I have a flight to catch to Accra.
No problem. Let me get a quick response from Dr. Stephen Amoah. You're listening to Alhassan Suhuyini.
Hello?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Of course, because I'm not where he is. I heard him, but not 100% clearly. But the point that I want to make from what he said, in the first place, if there has been any government that has exercised open culture system since 92, if we are counting only two, the leadership or the government that we are having at present is part of it. And I'm surprised that my brother is painting, in my opinion, respectfully, this kind of propaganda politics. Because we have been debating these issues in Parliament for a number of days. They have the opportunity to speak. We have opportunity to speak. We haven't gagged them. We have not said that we're not listening to them because we are majority or we are in government.
I think the point he was trying to make was, where you're coming from. Come to the table equally with an open mind so that you don't see them as
but that is what I'm answering.
Playing the political game.
We've done that in Parliament. We had finance committee for about 2-3 days over the weekend. We were there. We were all talking. Everybody is bringing his or her view. So what else, again, in terms of open culture system? He is painting a different picture. That's why I'm surprised. We have not enforced or we have not forced our ideas and our policies on them. All that we are seeking is an alternative, viable, prudent fiscal policies. And as of now, or at present, as I'm talking to you now, they have not been able to do that. What I'm saying is that we are not saying they cannot speak. Of course, that is the essence of democracy. We were doing that when we were in opposition. But when you criticize a policy, you bring an alternative that Ghanaians and other stakeholders will know that, what they are saying will yield better results than what we are taking. They have not been able to do that. That's my argument. That is my argument. And sometimes they also paint a picture like, it's not a covered economy that has brought the hardship and that we're already not doing well. But my sister, go and do comparative or trend analysis. Right from what Nana Addo Dankwa's leadership or president took over, government took over, and then the performance of these primary and secondary indicators before the COVID economy, even under the COVID economy, some of the parameters are even doing better than the time that they even handed over power because interest rates were moving beyond 30%. Even government oil rate, policy rate was around 25.5%. T-bills that we know in terms of its function, it's contrary to, it has negative correlation to performance of any good economy. We were having about 22.5%. We'll check all these things under His Excellency. But for the COVID, they were doing extremely, even some are still doing very well. But what we are saying is that they should accept the fact that we have an outlier situation now. We are not in a normal term. And even the legal framework tells us to even suspend. They don't want to talk about these things. But even if you move beyond that, we are supposed to fund our programs and policies. We are supposed to make sure that in the short term we have needs. We have social programs to fund. We have water issues. We have electricity issues. We have infrastructure issues. We have pro-poor or redistribution or social intervention issues. We have a lot of things that in the short term we need to fund them. They should tell us where are we going to get the money from. They should tell us. And what I'm saying is that they don't have to also paint a picture as if His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa's government has not done much to alleviate or mitigate hardships on the people, because the same leader, in terms of tax reduction or scrapping taxes, he's done about 15 of them. You know, that for the real estate, that for pharmaceutical products that are not produced in Ghana, that of financial services, that of the airline ticket domestically. We've done so many, plenty of them. So if there's hardship, you do M&E and adjustment, monitoring, evaluation, and adjustment. Adjustment will mean you redefine some of your parameters, maybe add or subtract. That is how you exhibit high level of pragmatism and dynamism as a leader. We all have our ideologies. We are a capitalist. They are social democrats. They are supposed to do pro-poor policies. Which of the pro-poor policies of national tenacity and character that they implemented? No. But if we as capitalists, we do that. That is a sign of a pragmatic leader. What we are seeing now is we have listened to them. We have done a lot of, discussions, debates, and other things with them. They've made their points, which I respect so much because they have the constitutional and the democratic right to doing that. But then we are not convinced that they have been able to provide alternative. And as of now, the best alternative now in the short term is making sure that if we want to manage our fiscal levels well, which is one of the requirements in terms of credibility or policy credibility that they imported, and making sure that your debt levels are okay. For now, government needs to fund the programs so that a mixture of small proportion of construction and fiscal policies where we can do 1 or 2 taxes, not taxing even incomes and other things, but we tax consumptions where we get something small and make sure that we can complete, we can consolidate, we can continue. And it is an inevitable requirement. That is what we are saying. But we are not saying that, they shouldn't speak. But they are also, they are also giving us signals that they will prevent, resist, and make sure that anything on the floor from this government, because they're also looking at 2024. But doing that, you don't show statesmanship. You should let Kenyans know that, yes, you want to come to power 2024, you love them, and that anything that is good, you will support. But you will not resist anything that is good.
Yeah, can we just end this conversation, with you maybe addressing the issue of when this whole drama would end? Because it looks like all the important issues when you discuss in Parliament end up with some kind of drama.
You're very sharp. Your questions are very deep. Thank you. I think that should be what we should be all expecting. Once that will happen, I think we in government shouldn't take positions that do not allow or that disallow our brothers from the other side or minority to have their say and exhibit their democratic and constitutional right. We don't have to. They themselves too shouldn't take very firm position that, we are in opposition. The numbers are almost the same. We'll resist everything so that the government businesses will be hampered or will be impeded so that we don't see much, we don't enjoy productivity, and then they will lose for 2024. No. I think stakeholders, and then those outsiders, the so-called experts and stakeholder institutions and individuals, they should also make sure that they don't have underlying political game to play. And the media too should exercise, just as you are doing now. Clearly, people are seeing that you are in the middle trying to push us and push them. If all these things will work out, all stakeholders should understand one fact. And the common interest is about Ghana. The common interest is about tomorrow. The common interest is about posterity and then the next generation. Once we give all the premium or the needed premium or precedence to the nation as our main goal, we will end this. Of course, there should be argument. But when people have preconceived ideas, prejudicial positions, that this is what we want to do, either by we in government or by they in opposition, it will be difficult. But I can assure you, once the bill is passed and government businesses, commences, all of these things. But of course, it will not go that easy way because the numbers are almost the same. They also want to come to power. We want to continue. We want to break the 8-year cycle that you come 8 and you go away. Ghana needs about 16 years for one particular good party or government like Nana Addo Dankwa's one to make sure that we can consolidate our infrastructure agenda and other things. So I'm sure we'll be talking, and I'm sure they are also, and all of us are coming to point of convergence. When we started, it was harsher than this. It was more difficult than this. It was more Herculean than this. But if you listen to my brother Suhini and you listen to me, we are all trying to find a way of defining a new point of convergence where all these halabaloo and
so it will get better.
Will be minimized. So we can assure Ghanaians that there's going to be very efficient and effective term of whatever the legislative body or the 8th Parliament we are going to do. So please, I understand your concern, but I'm sure very soon you'll see a change.
All right, we'll leave it here. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Stephen Amoah.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Is Member of Parliament for Inshaso and member of the Finance Committee of Parliament. He was on with Alhassan Suhini. We've been talking about the general approval given to the 2021 budget last Friday by Parliament. Of course, it didn't come easily. We saw some kind of drama again. But just as Dr. Stephen Amoah said, it was a bit different from the 6-7 drama that we witnessed in Parliament. We've got a conversation on Ghana's extractive industry, but we will take a breather. You're still watching the AM show. Please do stay with us.